This first property is dead middle Miami, sold date 12/21, so it was right around Christmas at the end of last year. 610,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a whopping 1,347 square feet, and it doesn't even have a swimming pool, folks. That's a $5,200 a month payment, but you can rent it for $3,379. Almost $2,000 difference in the spread of those two numbers, folks. What is going on in the new year, folks? In Florida, we have seen such a massive shift. The end of 2023, coming into 24, you saw a huge stall out. Buyers everywhere had hit the bricks, folks. And at the same time, we saw a weird, aseasonal, untypical amount of sellers pushing homes into the marketplace with Christmas trees in their photos because they were actually listing around the holiday season, which is such a weird thing to consider. Now, folks, all of this brings us into the new year, and I have some exciting things to show you. Me and my team worked tirelessly this week to actually show you case by case that if you are selling in Florida or you're buying in Florida, I'm going to show you among 7 of the major marketplaces what the going median price is right now, what it is compared to a year ago, and what does that mean if you buy the house in the median range for the major city that we're talking about versus renting. And folks, I believe what you are going to see is going to open your eyes as to just why we're seeing mortgage loan applications down all across America, and seemingly disproportionately, there's been a lot less buyer activity as we see ourselves going into January. We're looking at the new data hitting this past week. We're seeing buyer pendings. That is people getting qualified, putting a contract on a house, taking that property to contract. Those are even dipping in the most hottest markets like Miami. All of you love to go in my comments after every video. Whenever you see one of those scary thumbnails that Florida's got massive price cuts, you know those ones I make that have missiles and there's blood on the for sales and all that kind of stuff. But folks, the seemingly unpenetrable hottest market in the country, Miami, is seeing signs of shifting. Folks, this is a welcome sign because we've been in this mentality for so long now. What has it been? 4 years since the pandemic started. And over this entire period of time, in all real estate transactions across Florida, the seller has been the beast in the transaction. The seller has been the proverbial Ronnie Coleman, super strong, calling all the shots, demanding offers 100,000 over asking price, demanding buyer pay for everything. And over the past 4 years, if the seller's been Ronnie Coleman, the buyer over this phrase of time is more like a Hugh Jackman. You know, that 50-something Wolverine guy. He's got some muscle tone and a six-pack, but he's not Ronnie Coleman. I'm not talking Ronnie Coleman after 12 spinal surgeries. I'm talking about Ronnie Coleman juice to the ears. But folks, the seller in 2024 is looking less like Ronnie Coleman and more like Jason Strahan. It's looking more even Steven than it has in 4.5 years.
Change is coming, my fellow Americans. You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Now listen, folks, it's easy for most people on the internet to convolute real estate buying like an investment. Everybody says it's an investment. Look how much net worth real estate owners have, and they love to tout those things. But folks, when you grind down everything about buying a house to its basic essence, it's literally shelter cost. And the problem we are seeing now, that people are just seeing such a different discount in the rental market compared to the buying side, that I think that's really what's just caused people to be super disinterested in the market. Now, there's been certain marketplaces like Miami that have absolutely fought the tide. They're seeing prices even here in January that are 10 to 13% over a year ago, when other markets like Orlando and Tampa struggle to make 3 to 4% through 2023. And careful for all you people thinking the South in Florida is super strong. The South in Miami is one thing, but the South on the West Coast is completely different. Naples is down November to November 11% in median price. You got those markets across the Southwest that for whatever reason, whether it's coming back from the hurricanes and rebuilding and bringing those houses to the market, there's a lot of price erosion going on in the Southwest. And the unfortunate driver, particularly why even investors of short-term rental properties, those that own regular rentals, are really pulling themselves out of the marketplace, is because even the uncontrollable things like property tax, homeowners associations, and insurance really have no end in sight of coming down. And the problem with all those features are they're really controlled by outside factors. I just saw research out of Tallahassee this week that showed that property insurance homeowners have no end in sight because the reality is there's still a lot of lawsuits in the pipeline. There's not as many as we thought, but there's still thousands left to go through, and all those costs are still going to be absorbed by the Florida homeowner. A related issue is that some of our HOAs across Florida are getting hamstrung because they're also the recipients of fraud coming from insurance, coming from contractors, coming from landscapers, contracts going bad. I've seen several reports across the state where people that were paying $300-400 a month in their HOA shoots up to $1,000 a month. And a lot of that is probably temporary. I mean, maybe that's a year, 2 years that they're going to be paying $1,000 a month. But that's a lot, folks, when you got to consider that most of the people that bought a home in Florida, really from middle of 2021 all the way till now, many of the mortgage borrowers, which is more than half of all of those buyers of probably 1 million homes across the state, you got to believe a lot of those homeowners, when they were paying so far over appraised value just to beat out the other buyer, many of them are on a very thin ice situation in relation to getting another insurance bill that went up just a little more, which we're expecting that to happen this year, 20-30% more in insurance premiums climbing according to the insurance industry. But then if you're an investor, you get surprise attacks because your property insurance can really jump year to year. And folks, all of this understandably brings trepidation to a buyer who's looking at the market and saying, what do I do next? Now, add to that, let's take a look at some of these marketplaces and just what is going on when a buyer enters looking to buy versus renting the exact same house. Check this out. All right, folks, the first property you see here on the screen is from Jacksonville, Florida. We're going to start here at the first metro. I'm going to show you 3 different properties in Jacksonville and everywhere else as we go so that you can get an idea of what shelter costs really are right now. Now, the 3 properties, I pulled 3 recent sold with photos so you get an idea of how far your dollar goes in all of these different metros. We're literally going to go from the Panhandle, Pensacola, all the way to Miami and a couple places in between to give you an idea. If you buy a house here like you have on the screen, that would represent a typical home. You're going to know what it rents for. You're going to know what today's exact payment would be if you were to spend money on the median price to move to Florida or to move somewhere else if you already live here and you want to buy something else. Now, here's what we're looking at. The reason why you see the prices of the homes you're going to see that I picked today, all of these properties in each city represent the median price of that city. All right, folks, we're going to assume a $600 a month property insurance bill. That's going to be up or down depending on what you buy, how new or how old, all those kinds of things. Your monthly property tax bill is $454. If you buy this $400,000 property, and assuming you put money down, we're going to assume a 10% down, borrowing 90% on all the properties I'm going to show you today. That means you're coming in with $40,000 down payment with about $12,000 in closing costs, means you need $52,000 to close on one of these beautiful properties in the Price is Right game here in Jacksonville, folks. And listen, if you add all that up, your mortgage is $2,371 just principal and interest a month. You add a tiny little HOA to that, meaning you might have an HOA bill. Now, I said all that to say this. If you're buying a house on the median price, $400,000 with 10% down, your monthly estimated payment is $3,500 for any one of these properties I'm going to show you. So look at this. Property number 1. This sold a couple days ago at the time of airing this video at January 12th. The sold price of this house you see on screen, which was actually 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, it's 2,000 square feet, so it's not a monster house. As you can see in the living room photo, it's got some dated kind of aqua green carpet. But this house actually had a pool as well. So this is probably a nicer home for Jacksonville, even though it probably needs a little love. Now remember what I said, $3,500 all in on this Jacksonville property. That's assuming a $600 a month insurance bill. But here again, folks, look at the rent estimate according to Zillow, which I will add, Zillow's not terrible with these estimates on the rent side. I wouldn't tell you that their value, whenever you look at your home value on Zillow, it's usually very far off. It can be. The rents are surprisingly close. So listen to this. If you're renting this house, you are saving over $1,000 a month. Look at the next property. This one sold again here in early January. 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. This is a newer house, 2015, 1,840 square feet, no pool, sold at exact same price as the former one, 401,000, around the median price. This is very typical. Remember, the bill of this property is roughly $3,500. But if you're renting it, folks, you're paying $2,200. Now the number 3 median property, this is a little bit under the average. This is 381,525. This one closed in December, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 94. This is 1,611 square feet, folks. Because this is $20,000 cheaper, the payment on this one would probably be like $3,350. It wouldn't be $3,500. But look at this. You're going to be renting a property, according to Zillow, like this one, for $1,980 a month. A quick word on Jacksonville's market, folks. Months of supply in Jacksonville is the highest of all the major metros. So if you compare Jacksonville with Tampa, Orlando, and Miami, has over 5 months of supply. If we stop listing homes there, take over 5 months to sell it off, which is a soft market. I will tell you, I did check Redfin's numbers because they have the most recent week-to-week data going into the month of January for Jacksonville, and I'm seeing sellers pulling back compared with all the other major metros. So I'm noticing maybe a hesitancy in sellers to say, you know what? We can't contribute to burying this economy anymore. And it seems like Jacksonville's seen a slowdown in new listings going on, but there's been a very big pullback in buyers in the marketplace, putting them under contract. And it's not a surprise why. You can save $1,000 renting. When it all comes down to shelter cost, then people are going to think about it and say, it's the gap's too far, I'm out. All right, folks, next 3 properties we're going to look at are in Central Florida. We're going into the Orlando metro area. This, folks, has a $440,000 median price as we go into 2024. Now, that's up 3% over last year. And revealing the numbers, folks, if you're buying the median price in Orlando, you're putting down $44,000. That's 10%. You're paying approximately $13,000 closing costs, meaning you're going to need about $60,000 to buy a house in the median price. Again, I know there's other types of loans that require less. I'm talking the averages, okay? With 10% down on today's mortgage rate, which by the way is 6.9% as I'm shooting this video, your total payment, including taxes, insurance, the whole enchilada for this median property in Orlando is $3,703, okay? Now, as I mentioned a second ago, remember, that's a $440,000 number set that I ran. Now, this property just closed, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. It's a brand new house, 2,353 square feet with no pool. This one sold for $423,000, folks. Now, let's imagine that this is a little cheaper, so the payment's probably gonna be about $100 less, maybe $3,550, $3,600, but the rent on it is $2,868, which here again further illustrates what I'm talking about. The next property inside of the Orlando metro area is in Sanford, Florida. This is the northern edge of the city. Now, this is 11/13/23 was when it closed, so it's about a month and a half ago. 4 bedrooms, 3-bath, built in 2007, 2,200 square feet, no pool, just inside of the median. $430,000 is what this sold for. So you're going to assume around $3,600 a month, whereas the rent estimate is $2,686. Renters would save almost $1,000 renting this house versus buying it. Next, we're going close to Disney. This is still in Central Florida. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 1995, 2,001 square feet, folks. Sold for $425,000. So you can estimate the payment's going to be around $3,500, $3,600 a month, and you could rent this house for $2,236, according to Zillow's estimator. Now, folks, the story about the Orlando market and Central Florida at large right now is we are seeing many, many more listings hitting the market versus 2023 at the exact same time. We are up 15%. One thing I will say about Orlando is properties are pending and they're going closed at the same rate they were in 2023, which is a good thing, folks, because like Orlando, many of the markets around Florida have this big increase in listing supply hitting the market, but the absorption isn't even what it was a year ago. It's beneath that. But as you can obviously assume, folks, if you're bringing in 15% more homes than last year, but you're only absorbing the same rate of properties that you did the year prior, then obviously that is adding to existing active inventory. So as it stands right now, if Orlando continues to go under contract and sell similar, it's on top of the exact same path of last year, while more listings are coming in, active inventory will stack up if that doesn't change, and we'll see as we go into the spring months. All right, folks, the next property we have on the screen is Tampa, Florida. So again, when we're covering Tampa and all these markets, we are talking about metro area, the metropolitan statistical area, which for Tampa includes Clearwater and St. Petersburg. So it's a pretty big area. Now, folks, listen, the median price for Tampa coming into this year is $410,000. It's about $30,000 less, nearly 10% less and more affordable to buy a home in Tampa than its neighbor to the east in the Orlando metro area. And folks, that $410,000 price in Tampa for the median is up from $395,000, which represents nearly a 4% price climb in the past year. Now, just like Orlando, you're going to put 10% down. You're going to pay your closing costs. You're going to be in the $50,000 to $60,000 price range on cash to close. And your payment on that $410,000 median price home here in Tampa is $3,520. Now, folks, as you can see, 5-bedroom, 4-bath, 3,200 square feet. This property is loaded. So you got a $420,000 property that sold recently with an in-ground pool, folks. The rental estimate is $3,919. Now, this looks like an amazing, amazing deal. Now, I don't have interior photos, so maybe the inside of this thing looked like it was from Beirut. It might have looked tore up from the floor up. I don't know, but that is the numbers. Next property we're gonna look at is in St. Petersburg, Florida. Again, this literally closed in 24 hours from the time I'm shooting this video. This property is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, also had an in-ground pool, 1957 year built, 1,273 square feet, most likely very prime location for $407,500. Now, folks, again, $3,500 versus the rent estimate on this one is $2,300. This is obviously a $1,200 difference. That's going to make it tough for a buyer to consider that versus renting. Next property up is in Clearwater, Florida. Again, all these are Tampa metro. I'm trying to give you a variety of looks in each metro area. This is January 11th closing, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a 1978 build, 1,719 square feet, folks. $430,000 was the price it sold for. And again, $2,734 a month. But if you average the difference of shelter costs, folks, rent versus own in Tampa's area, it looks like it's probably the cheapest of all the markets we've seen so far. Now, a word on how Tampa's marketplace is doing as we go into 2024 is very similar to Orlando. You've got listing volume there higher, more sellers active than they were the prior year, same time in January, 7 to 9%, depending on the week. There's been definitely more of a push of sellers just saying, I'm done, I'm getting off the sidelines, this is my year. At the same time, just like Orlando, Tampa is performing the same in that a similar amount of properties to 2023 is going under contract and selling off. So the volume patterns are identical. And as you can imagine, month of supply is inching up in Tampa. It was around 3.5 months early last year. It's now around 4 to 4.5 months of supply range. That's very similar. Again, both of these two Central Florida Titan marketplaces really patterning off one another very similarly. Folks, we're going to the absolute monster market anomaly, which is Miami. Miami's median price going into 2024 is $605,000, folks. That's up $100,000 from 2022, folks. Miami is up 10% year over year. Now, folks, if you buy that same property, $605,000, factor in taxes, factor in HOA, factor in insurance, you're gonna have yourself just short of $5,200 a month in Miami. Now, this first property is dead middle Miami, sold date 12/21, so it was right around Christmas at the end of last year. $610,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a whopping 1,347 square feet, and it doesn't even have a swimming pool, folks. Now, as I mentioned, that's a $5,200 a month payment, but you can rent it for $3,379. Almost $2,000 difference in the spread of those two numbers, folks. This is the kind of stuff you see in LA, where you have really wide spreads between rent and ownership. Now, folks, we're going to West Palm Beach. Now, you're sitting there saying, Jared, I thought we were talking about Miami. Well, Miami's metro includes West Palm Beach. It's Boynton Beach, Boca Raton, Fort Lauderdale. I tried to give you a variety of looks. If you're in the marketplace, you're looking at these houses, you're saying, what can I buy in these different cities? How's the price look on all these properties? You're going to get it right here. I'm serving it right to you. So West Palm Beach, on the median price for this metro area, $605,000. This property closed a week ago at the time of this video. 4-bedroom, 3 total bath, built in 2023, nearly brand new or brand new, 1,971 square feet, folks. Look at this. You're renting this house for $3,700. You're buying it for $5,200 a month payment. And the last property, Boca Raton, just closed days ago, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, built in 1987, 2,575 square feet with an in-ground pool, $590,000. If you just snap this bad boy up for $590,000, you could pay that $5,200 a month payment and eventually one day lease it out for $7,167 a month. Are you buying that, folks? I don't know. Now, a word on Miami's market as an update for 2024 is there's starting to be some massive changes we haven't seen in Miami in multiple years. Now, a headline is Miami's hot. If I were to give Miami a score out of 10, it'd be like an 8, 8.5 right now because it is hot. It's been hotter, but I will tell you folks, the winds of change seem to be setting in because one major thing I'll tell you, more sellers are off the sidelines this year than they've been in multiple years. You have 4-year high amount of inventory. Sellers to the tune of nearly 10% more putting houses in the market than they were in 2023. At the same time, pendings are down. More inventory up, 10% over the mark, 4% under the mark in terms of buyers absorbing that new inventory, which is good because obviously in the end, the more that's hitting the market in Miami, the less that's actually selling off. You're actually going to see a bit of an active inventory gain, which inventory in Miami is so off its norms, it won't be noticeable for a very long time. So Miami, you are still the gift that keeps on giving to all the people that own homes in the area there. You're still the Ronnie Coleman and you're still squeezing out all those buyers that would love to get in and find something to live in, but can't afford it. All right, folks, the next marketplace we're looking at is Cape Coral. Cape Coral is the first marketplace that we're covering that is actually dropped in price officially over the past year. The marketplace here was $400,000 median price a year ago. It is now $390,000, which is one of the few markets in Florida which has given up its price. Now, a $390 price with a 10% down mortgage gives you $3,329 a month. The first property we're looking at is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath with no pool, sold right at $380,000, and it is definitely cheaper than buying at $2,500 a month. This tricky part about Cape Coral is like when you're a buyer looking at a market like this, you're looking at the market like, why do I want to buy now if I can possibly wait and it gets cheaper? That's the downside of a marketplace that's already putting lower numbers on the board and there's still an inequity, meaning it's still more expensive to buy than to rent. So if the people are saying, hey, I could save money on rent and the price is falling, that's when the market funnels itself. It literally starts going down. It basically becomes a victim of its own results that it's posting because buyers themselves, listen, if buyers really in their heads have zero motive, like they literally sit there and they go, I got to pay more than rent to buy this house. And the likelihood that it's going to be cheaper a year from now, I'm not buying anything. Because here's the thing. In all the marketplaces I've shown you, Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, the only thing that we haven't seen happen yet is a little bit of a slowdown in price. It's super close. Number one, we saw there's $800, $1,000 a month gap per month in a marketplace where you might see economies getting squeezed harder and people need the money more and they really pass on the opportunity to buy. And that happens more with more inventory hitting. Once you start seeing depreciation in an economy, that's all it takes for people to opt out because investors aren't buying it. Because why in the world would an investor buy a house that is going to rent for $1,000 less than what they can pay for it? You got to remember too, I'm running these payments with 10% down at owner occupant primary purchase rates of 6.9%. And investors rate's going to be like 7.9 or 8.9. I say all that to say this. Could Cape Coral be the future for all the Florida markets? I don't know. I'll tell you this, Cape Coral was the leader in the last marketplace collapse. Cape Coral was the biggest bust in 2008. Let us all remember. Look at this one, a newer property, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 2021, probably a one-owner home, 1,688 square feet, which is probably D.R. Horton maybe, I don't know. $399,000 was the sale price on this property. Remember, over $3,300 a month to buy, only $2,280 to rent, leaving a $1,000 spread. And number 3, Fort Myers, Florida. Remember, Cape Coral includes Fort Myers. Being thorough, throwing another option in the same place. Sold date January 16th, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 1983, 2,104 square feet is what you get for $400,000 even. Looks like a pretty clean older home. Rent estimate $5,800. Doubt it. The next property we're looking at is in Naples, Florida, folks. Now, Naples, Florida, November to November, which is the most recent, I have data from the Florida Board of Realtors, has the biggest price declines of any market we are reviewing, this one fell 100 grand. Isn't that crazy? Opposite side of the state from Miami fell from 850,000 to 750,000. 11.8% downward pressure on price. Now, folks, even paying 750,000 for a property with 10% down, you have a payment in Naples of $5,940 a month for a property at this price point that you're seeing here on the screen. So look what you get in Naples. January 9th, this property closed, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, built in 2004, 1,980 square feet with an in-ground pool, $5,900 a month. You can rent it for $3,500 a month, according to Zillow. Property number 2 just closed, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 2010, 2,188 square feet, sold right on the median, $755,000. This property would rent for $6,572 a month. Not bad. Property number 3 in Naples, sold end of last month for $750,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1995 build, $1,832 a month. Rent is about $800 less. And again, folks, if you cut the average, you're probably still $1,200 to $1,500 a month more if you buy versus rent. And again, you can see it case by case. Most any property you look at on Zillow, a lot of times, if there's enough data, will aggregate a response of what it thinks a property will rent for. Always nice to take that in consideration against what your buying power is. And obviously, you can just pull rentals in the area and see what the similar houses are going for as well. All right, folks, the last marketplace that we are looking at, house number 1, is from the Panhandle, the Pensacola, Florida metropolitan statistical area. Now, folks, properties in Pensacola went up 2% over last year, so relatively flat. Their marketplace at the end of 22 was 315 grand. The end of 2023, $321,000. Obviously, one of the more affordable marketplaces in all of Florida at this point. It is $2,728 a month to purchase a home on the median price. This one's just beneath the price point. Look at this. January 13 close, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,200 square feet, good size house for 300 grand. So obviously you can see, it looks like your money goes a little further. The house isn't too easy on the eyes from out front, but we won't take anything away because you can rent this bad boy for $1,900 a month. Purchasing this house is going to be about $600 a month more. Property number 2 is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 1986, 1,595 square feet. Looks like it's got solar panels on it and a nice interior. Very beautiful starter 3.2, $315,000, right on the average. And once again, folks, you are purchasing this house for over $2,700 a month, renting it for $1,796 a month. And last property of the day is a little over the number. It's $325,000, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, another 1,595 square feet, 25-year-old, 30-year-old property. Rents for about $500, maybe $600 less than the monthly mortgage payment. That's it for today's video, folks. And if you are looking to buy or sell in the Central Florida area, my team and I are here to help you out. Reach out to us at info@jaredjones.com. Links are in the description below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.